One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. Okay, so I'll just admit it. I dropped the ball a little bit. Okay, I dropped the ball a little bit on this one because here we are. It's almost the end of May, and I'm just now releasing the April 2021 Buzzsprout stats episode. I know. But like in my defense, there were some crazy things that happened in May that I was like, oh my gosh, I got to do these, and it didn't happen. But you know what? Here we are. That's all that matters, right? Like no more excuses. That is all that matters. We are here today to talk about Buzzsprout's global stats for April 2021. So let's get right to it. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach entrepreneurs how to start, launch, and market their podcast. I'm your host, Krystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of podcasting, think of this show as the time-saving shortcut you've been looking for. So let's get right to it, shall we? So if you are brand new around here and you've never listened to our other bonus episodes, in January 2021, I decided, you know what? I'm going to share all of the Buzzsprout information because there's some really cool stats. Like, let's just be honest. If you've listened to the other ones, you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that they're sharing this information. And so I started doing bonus episodes for the Profit Podcast after the month. Like, okay, so hang on. How do I say this? It's not retroactively. That's not right. Okay, so we're in May 2021. And then so they just released April 2021. And then in June, they will release like the prior month's statistics. Obviously, I shouldn't talk about this like without thinking about it, because I'm like talking in circles trying to understand how to explain this to you. But you know what I mean, right? Like we're about a month behind. We can't report on May stats because in real time, it's still May. So they can't tell us what's happening, but we can look at the April stats to see what they're doing. So you can go to buzzsprout.com/global_stats. And then from there, you can actually look at like how podcasting has changed across the Buzzsprout podcast since October 2020. That's when they first started doing these. And I got really excited because y'all, you know I'm nerdy. You know I'm nerdy about all these stats. So I got really excited. So in looking at April, what's really cool is in March, and you're going to hear me clicking around because it's what I do. It's what I do when I do these bonus episodes. There's a lot of clicking because I'm going back and forth. But in March 2021, Buzzsprout users officially crossed over 100,000 active podcasts, which is really cool. It's really cool to know that the information that you're reading here is spread out over 100,000 different podcasts. So it's pretty good lottery, right? Like, I mean, I love statistics. Like, hang on, let me back up and share a little bit about my real nerdiness. Not to brag, but also to brag. I got a 98 in my statistics class. Okay, like I'm just saying, it makes me really happy to nerd out on all these numbers and look at them because there's something about it. I just get like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And I know a lot of you're rolling your eyes at me, but it's okay. It's okay. The people that don't want to listen to this have already shut it off, and I'm okay with that. This is why we only do these once a month, because y'all probably wouldn't be able to handle my super, super nerdy podcast powers that I possess. But so in March, we crossed the threshold into 100,000 podcasts. Now in April, we added about 4,000 more podcasts. And for me, like that just blows my mind. That blows my, because I know that there's more than that out there, like across the podcast industry, but just to know 4,000 new podcasts were started in 1 month, that's so cool. It's so rad. Like, it makes my podcasting heart happy. Okay. So if you go to the page that I'm looking at, again, go to buzzsprout.com/global_stats. You can read along with me, like while I go through these, or you can just listen and go check it out later. But what was interesting is in March, Spotify took the lead from Apple, but now they switched back. Like they are literally, and I described this the other day, I did a training and it was so fun. I did a training inside Amy Porterfield's Momentum group, which was awesome. Shout out to like fellow Momentum members, y'all. Were so awesome, so welcoming, and it was so much fun. But somebody asked the question of, with Apple Podcasts making all their changes, what are the other platforms doing? And the best analogy I could think of was, and y'all know this, if you listen to this show, I have 3 boys. We are so into like the Godzilla and Kong and like all those movies. And I imagine Apple Podcast, you should see me right now. I have both of my fists up. Apple Podcast is one fist, right? Like they are Godzilla. They've been around forever. They're the ancient ones that they feel like no one can dominate them. And here comes Kong. Kong is Spotify. He's the newer kid on the block that's just like, oh, you want to go? Like you want to fight? Really? Is that how this is going to go down? Well, I will bang my chest and come at you. And Godzilla's like, oh, okay, but I can get the power of lightning and do all kinds of like, okay, I'm really nerding out on Godzilla versus Kong, which if you haven't seen it, it's an incredible movie. It was so, so good. Like highly recommend watching it. But that's what's happening. I feel like they're just in this power struggle now. It's Apple Podcast versus Spotify and all the other people. Like Apple Podcast is at 29% of Buzzsprout plays. Like all the Buzzsprout, like there was 23 million downloads that happened on Apple Podcast. And then there was 23 million that happened on Spotify because they carry like the exact same percentage of the market. It just happens that Apple is just slightly edging them out. Like it's 0.1%. It's not a whole percent. It's 0.1% of Apple being in the lead. but Spotify was just in the lead. Now, why does this matter? It matters because I'm curious to know where your people are listening to your show. So you could go into your Buzzsprout account, look at the stats and say, oh, most of my people listen on Apple. Most of my people listen on Spotify. And this is really important only because it helps you understand where your people are coming from. Now, it's a more advanced strategy that we can get into in another day, but I like to understand that people, I don't have a lot of people on Spotify. Spotify doesn't even register on my stats in my personal account, right? And for the Profit Podcast, there's no, Spotify is not even in the top 5, but Apple is always at the top. So that tells me I need to pay attention to all these changes that Apple is making. I need to pay attention to what they're doing because that's where the majority of you are listening to this podcast. So that's why these stats matter and why I constantly am looking at them to see what's actually going on in the market. Starting a podcast can be super overwhelming. How do I know? Well, because I've been there. I have been in your shoes. If you are just now in the creation stage of getting your podcast up and running, then I invite you to check out Profit Podcasting. This is my digital program that teaches you all the ins and outs of how to start, launch, and market your podcast. I want you to go check it out and see if it's going to be the right fit for you. If you're looking for a way to understand exactly how podcasting works, you want to know how to create content, how to launch your podcast, how to get it on all the players, but most importantly, how to tell people about it without feeling like you're alienating your friends, your family, your neighbor. I want you to go check out Profit Podcasting. So go to krystalprofit.com/course to learn more about Profit Podcasting and to enroll today. krystalprofit.com/course to check out more. Okay, let's get back to today's episode. The next stats that they have are countries. Those really haven't changed that much. 47% of listeners are in the United States across all the Buzzsprout accounts. And I don't really see any change in, what's different, what's new. It looks like about the same. There's the United States, the UK, Canada, Mexico, Australia, and the Netherlands. There's not anything that's jumping off to me that's a significant change from whenever they started doing these stats. Devices, let me see. Android phone. Okay, so Apple phone is 62% and Android phone is 24%. Now, I want to say maybe those numbers have changed since they started. I don't remember an Android having that much. I'm actually going to go back to October 2020. It looks like it's about the same. So it was 64% then, 22% now for the Android phone. So it's pretty, the Apple Podcast app, I think, is still bringing in a lot of people that have an Apple device because it's built in. It's right there. They don't have to do anything extra. They don't have to download anything. It's just there on their phone. It's on their device. So nothing really new to report on devices. The device types, that's still about the same. Mobile is 89% of listens across all of the Buzzsprout downloads. So it makes sense to me. I listen on my phone. I don't ever listen to podcasts anywhere else. So that part makes sense to me. But this is the part that everyone always wants to know. Okay, so the updates for episode downloads. So if your podcast in the first 7 days, right? You release an episode and it is 7 days later, how many plays can you expect to get? So the top 50%, the top 50% of podcasts that are on Buzzsprout are getting 28 plays. Is that number shocking to you? Because people, when I tell people to go look at these stats, they're like, those can't be right. It is true. Across 100,000 podcasts, 28 downloads in the first 7 days means you're in the top 50% of those podcasts. Do you know how much the top 25% is? 77. It's not even 100. to be in the top 25% of these 100,000 podcasts across Buzzsprout, you need 77 downloads. I hope this is blowing your mind right now. I know I say it every month and these numbers really haven't changed that much, but it blows my mind for no one that has, like, if you have not heard these stats before, right? If you're brand new to hearing the Buzzsprout updates and seeing what podcasters, how they're actually performing, I hope that these numbers make you feel better. Because I think that there is a lot of misconception out there that some podcasts are publishing their episodes and within the first week, they have thousands of downloads. That's not typical, y'all. It's not typical. And if somebody says that, don't believe them. Okay, maybe that's not fair. Maybe that's not fair to say don't believe them, but yeah, don't believe them. Because the top 25% of these 100,000 shows. Remember, there's 100,000 podcasts we're talking about here. The top 25% are getting 77 downloads in the first 7 days. This is a big deal. I want you to take this to heart. I want you to go look at these stats yourself. And then the top 10% in the first 7 days, they're getting 254 downloads. The top 5% are getting 616. And the top 1% of podcasts, which is probably not anybody listening to this show, right? I mean, I don't have a top 1% podcast, but they're getting 3,400 downloads. Okay, so I don't know how important your podcast ranking is or your podcast downloads, but I can tell you right now that you're probably doing better than you thought you were. Okay, like let's throw it out there. If you're just getting started and you're like, I only have 50 people listening to my show, you're in the top 50%. Okay, you're actually inching closer to the top 30% of podcasts on Buzzsprout. So I'm just telling you. that that's what's going on. The next stats that they have is the episode duration. This is how long how long the episode is, like the length of the episodes that are being uploaded into Buzzsprout. This is how long they are. And these numbers really haven't changed. The bulk of the episodes are between 20 and 60 minutes. They actually have them broken down between less than 10 minutes, 10 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, and over 60. But the two highest percentages that make up about 50% are between 20 to 40 and then 40 to 60. So if you're producing a show that's between 20 minutes and 60 minutes, you're right there with the other 50% of, so it's like, 50,000 podcasters have shows that are between 20 minutes and 60 minutes. So you're probably right there with them. And then how often episodes are being published. So the good majority of people are publishing episodes either every 3 to 7 days or every 8 to 14 days. This is where the majority is lying. I have people that ask me about, well, what if I do a podcast once a month? So every 30 days, based on this information, only 1%. Of 100,000 podcasts, only 1% of them are publishing once a month. So I'm not going to tell you it's a bad idea to start that way, but I will say that I don't believe it's enough time to really get in front of your audience and establish a connection and make them excited to listen because they're only seeing you once a month, right? Like I see some of my family members like less than that. And it's just like, I don't feel really connected to them because I only see them once a year. So I would recommend if you really want to get connected with your audience and have deeper engagement, show up at least twice a month, but I would prefer for you to show up every single week, just once, every single week. That is the sweet spot that I've found that can really start snowballing all of your content and your message and just being able to connect with your people on a deeper level. But that's all I have for y'all today. I hope that you go check out Buzzsprout's the platform statistics and check this out. Again, it's buzzsprout.com /global_stats. So go check that out. I'm going to link to it in the episode description. There are no show notes for these bonus episodes. It's kind of the beautiful thing about them. They're very simple in that we don't do anything that's like above and beyond, but I did want to share them before the month of May ended. I was like, you better hurry up because May is like, you're going to have to turn around May's pretty soon, but I did it. We're here. We made it to the end. This is your April 2021 recap of the Buzzsprout Global Statistics. So if you have not already, make sure you hit that follow button wherever you're listening so you get updated on bonus episodes like this and you always are aware of whenever we publish brand new content. But that's all I have for you today. So remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Krystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Krystal a text message. And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.